This is going to be the best guide when it comes to how to play the character Meowth in Pokemon Unite.
Yeah, that's right.
First, we're gonna take a little bit of a look into the best available moveset for this Pokemon, which will consist of Payday and Feint Attack. For Payday, a maximum of 2 usage can be kept in reserve for this move. Every time we're gonna use this move, we're gonna throw gold coins onto our opponents. These gold coins will drop onto the floor, laying there, able for us to pick them up. And every time we would be picking up gold coins, it would reduce the time until another reserve for this move becomes available. And not to forget, this move also applies a slowing effect. Then, for Feint Attack, we will be able to jump onto our opponent, briefly stunning him and dealing a little bit of damage. The key part of this move is that we can decide in which direction we jump off of our opponent. That is very, very important because we want to choose the direction to jump off of to directly land onto the coins that drop to the floor by us using our Payday attack. Since we're gonna invade with Meowth, spoiler alert, it is very, very important and key which items to take. 2 items in particular are very, very important, and this is Razor Claw and Scope Lens. I myself personally prefer the Charging Charm here for additional movement speed and a little bit of additional burst damage as well, but the item Muscle Band would also be a very viable choice here. Of course, it should be needless to explain or to tell you that whenever you play a Pokemon that invades the enemy jungle, especially for the early game, you're gonna pick Potion as your battle item. With all of this knowledge established, we can now jump into game and see how things look in action. Here we are, and please don't worry, we're not gonna watch an entire game of course, and we're gonna explain exactly why we do what we do. We're gonna pick Feint, we're gonna jump over the wall, and we're gonna kill the Xatu. Not only to unlock our second move, but also whenever you kill an Pokemon with Meowth, you're gonna get access to a second battle item. Unfortunately here, we hit Goal Getter. We would prefer, of course, an eject button, an X speed, or the perfect choice would be to get access to a second potion. But RNG can be a bitch, and we're gonna have to deal with it. Of course, you know that whenever you're gonna invade your enemies on the Kyogre map, I should say, you're always gonna invade the red buff. Why? Because it is more beneficial, it is faster and safer to invade the red buff because he stays on top of the enemy jungle and not on the bottom like the blue buff would. We never gonna underestimate our opponents, and we always gonna predict them to do the most beneficial thing for themselves. And that is whenever they would see an enemy like Meowth that is very, very likely to invade them, they want to clear the buff for themselves that is unsafer, let me say it like that, first. And this is exactly what our opponent Ghastly here is doing. He's gonna attempt to kill this red buff as fast as he possibly can to deny him from me. But of course we are fast enough and we're gonna not only steal this red buff away. That is not our highest priority. We aim to kill our opponent right here, and that is exactly what we're gonna accomplish. After that, it is very, very important to have the timer in mind. You can see this right here. Let me go back. Pay attention to whenever you last hit this red buff. That is super, super important. This is right here. You can see the timer on top of your screen. It says 9:26. Whenever you last hit a buff, there's a 1-minute timer until this buff respawns. So right now, you know the exact time that you want to be here on this red buff in the enemy jungle again, which is 8:26. Alright, that is super important. Then we can continue. We're not gonna waste our time by killing this enemy Xatu or by killing the enemy Baltoy, because we have a very important timer for us to keep in check. So we're gonna grab this blue buff and we're gonna teleport back. Now you have to check the time. It doesn't always play out this perfectly, because your enemy will like plays a little bit better and waste a little bit more of your time. And now you're gonna evaluate and check the timer once you recalled. My timer now is 9:13. That means I have enough time to clear one of my buffs. I have the choice. I either clear red buff or I clear the blue buff. You always want to clear the red buff, like in most cases, because it is closer to your top lane compared to the blue buff that would be a little bit further away from your bottom path. Right? Those are just a few steps, but we're going to play everything as efficiently as possible. You have to keep in mind that you have to have, as a jungler, always, no matter what you do, if you invade or you clear your own jungle, you have to be at the bees, at the Altarias that spawn. So you have to know that these Altarias, they spawn at 8:50. So the latest you want to arrive in your lane is like 8:44, 8:43, so that you are always ready once these Altaria spawn. That is why it is very, very important to not waste time in the enemy jungle, or not clear your entire enemy jungle as well, right? You have a team and you gotta help your team out. And the best way to do this is to be right here at the Altaria spawn. Now, you know solo queue, brain dead people all over the place, right? Of course, like you gonna aim, since you are a Meowth, you aim for the kills, of course, and not the Altarias. For other Pokemon that you would play, the Altarias would be more efficient to focus on the last hits of the Altaria instead of going for kills. But we are a speedster, we are an assassin, and that's why we're gonna always prioritize going for kills instead of last hitting those Altarias. And the way you wanna play this, I'm gonna show you this later in a more convenient way. The rotation is always, you want to use both of your payday charges first, and then you want to use your feint attack, or in this case feint, because we were not. And then you have to evaluate. After we have cleared the Altarias, you have to evaluate the situation. How did this clear go? Were you able to manage to get the Altarias? Did you even get a kill? Could you score, right? And based on the results, like if you didn't get a last hit on an Altaria, if you didn't get a kill, then you would now go back to your jungle, clear it, and then go for the mid lane objectives that you can see on the minimap that spawns in 20 seconds. Now, since we got a kill, since we got the Altarias, since I was able to score, I'm gonna invade the enemy jungle one more time. That is the most efficient way you can play, but this is not always 100% possible. Sometimes you can't do this, right? But if your Altaria gank, so to speak, doesn't go to complete shit, you're gonna be here on this red buff in the enemy jungle one more time after the Altarias. We figured out that this red buff respawns at 8:26. We are here at 8:20. Because this is how the lane worked out. And here we go again. Now you have two options. Either you're gonna go to clear this red buff immediately, or you're gonna wait a little bit in the tall grass to see if your opponent would come and try to clear his red buff, and then you would be able to kill him, right? But I already figured out that the enemy jungler here is not on top of his game, to say it at least, so I don't think he will time his rotations well enough to be here in time, and therefore I just decide to clear this red buff right away. Cool. And then you're gonna do the same again. Now you aim for the blue buff. You always aim for the buffs. You do not kill the Zartus or the Baltoys or anything. You only gonna aim for the buff. Now you would have two options. Either you go mid immediately, or you're gonna clear your jungle. Since there is still a buff, at least one buff in my jungle available, I'm gonna grab that one first, and then after I got it, I go mid. But it would also be a possible choice to immediately go mid after you cleared this blue buff, because you hit your power spike, which is level 7. I'm aiming for level 9 to get access to my ultimate here, because that is a more efficient way to snowball than going for this mid lane objective. But you have a choice, of course. And from this point on, let me show you how you clear this objective. You use payday over and over and over and over again. See, payday, coins drop. You pick up these coins, payday, you pick up the coin, payday, right? And right here, I didn't do it in the most efficient way because my ass is a little bit lazy and I did not fear any enemy showing up there. But what you usually want to aim is to, quote unquote, rip the objective by using the payday, as I just explained. But you always want to finish this objective off by using your feint attack. Never try to last hit with payday. You always gonna last hit with feint attack. Additionally, of course, you don't have to pay too much attention to this, because at objectives in a game where I would be contested, I would aim to kill the opponent's Pokemon that has the best secure available to them, instead of helping with the actual objective. I am an assassin, I'm gonna aim at kills, and I'm not gonna prioritize ripping objectives, right? So look at your opponent's composition, figure out and know which Pokemon of the enemies has the best secure available to them, and you're gonna aim to kill this exact Pokemon so that your team has a higher probability, a higher chance of securing the actual objective. Okay, and from this point onwards, you're just gonna play the game. You're gonna be a menace, you're gonna time the enemy buffs, and you're always gonna be there. See? I know exactly that this perfectly timed, right? I know exactly when this red buff spawns, and that's why I'm here and clearing it. I know I always, when I take the red buff, I also clear the blue buff, so I know this is always also gonna be available for me. Boom, I denied the enemy jungler all of their experience and got it for myself. I'm level 10, I'm snowballing the game, and I'm showing up to the objectives that just spawned. As I just explained, we're gonna aim here. I misplayed this, I should have not paid Data Bunny, right, obviously. But yeah, see, I'm gonna aim for the kills first, then I'm gonna spam payday, and I'm gonna secure the objective with feint attack and not with payday. That's gonna be about it. Now let's take a little bit of a closer look into how the actual rotation of this Pokemon works in its most efficient way. And here it goes. Remember, you can see that we have payday in reserve twice. We can use it twice, and for the perfect rotation we're gonna aim at actually using it twice. So payday, we dodge a little bit around, we use another payday. After we used the second payday, we're gonna look at where the coins on the floor lay. We can see 2 coins right next to Glaceon. So if we now use our feint attack, we're gonna make sure that we jump off of Glaceon in a way so that we pick up these 2 coins that lay on the floor right there, like this. Boop. I got 2 coins right there, and you can see this allows me immediately to use payday again, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Now, if shenanigans would arrive, you see that we stole another battle item from Glaceon, which would be a potion. So in this fight, if this Glaceon would fight back or give me any kinds of trouble, then I would be able to double potion in this fight, which guarantees me the win no matter what. For other opponents, you will steal other items like an X speed or an eject button, right? Pay attention to this, and if needed, fill it into your rotation. So after we use the third payday, after the feint attack, we're gonna go ahead and either follow this guy. If we, for example, got an eject button or an X speed, we could auto attack our opponent down here, as this is a Glaceon, right? But to avoid any kind of trouble and make it as convenient as possible, we're just gonna use our ult, and that is gonna be the fight. With this kind of combination, if you play it correctly and you don't fall too far behind, you gonna kill pretty much everything with it. If the ultimate here wouldn't kill, it wouldn't be that much of a big deal, because our ultimate leads to a lot of coins laying on the floor. Let me show you. this in a little bit of a better way. There are already 2 coins. That is already enough for us, right? We would already be able to use our payday twice in a row again after our ultimate anyways. And remember that there were 3 coins, and these coins, they also, as you saw, give you a speed boost. So if your opponent doesn't die after this ultimate usage, you can slow him with payday, slow him again with payday, feint attack his ass, payday him again, right? And then claw him down with your boosted auto attacks. And this is gonna kill every single enemy in the game. Even like Blastoises and Snorlaxes go down from this combination, unless you fall too far behind in the early game. For completion's sake, I want to mention that in case you are like, oh man, I want to play Meowth, but I'm not a fan of this invading kind of strategy playstyle. I never did it. I'm not quite confident in pulling this off successfully, consistently. But I want to play Meowth. What am I gonna do? Then you're gonna go for a scaling kind of build when it comes to your items, and you're gonna play with Muscle Band, Attack Weight, and a Cell Bracer. You're gonna hit level 5 by clearing your entire jungle, and then you're gonna gank and hope for the best. For battle items, you're not gonna use the potion, of course. You aim for whatever you are most comfortable with between X speed, full heal, or eject button. Depending on your playstyle, if you are like a top lane main, for example, and you know how exactly your stacking works, right? Since we play the attack weight, a goal getter is not too shabby of a choice either, because most of your opponents, they will play the eject button, the full heal, and the X speed, and Meowth can steal these items. So even if you use goal getter, you still gain access to X speed, eject button, and full heal anyways by grabbing these battle items from your opponents, right? That is what Meowth does, and that is a very big reason why Meowth is a pretty good Pokemon, especially for invading. But yeah, it can also scale like a truck, so don't worry too much about that. And this is how you would play Meowth if you don't want to invade with it. Let me tell you about the other build that Meowth has, this one right here with Fury Stripes and Assurance. The way this rotation works is the following. We're gonna engage by either using an X speed or maybe just even running the enemy down just like that. But yeah, if you either want to do this with X speed or like the way I will show you right now. First, you're gonna close the gap with Insurance. Now you gotta pay attention. You see, we auto attacked our enemy once here. That gives us 1 stack. We want to make sure to auto attack our opponent at least 1 more time, preferably 2 times, before we use our Fury Stripes. You will see this right here. Boom, I have 2 stacks. Now, since I have the gap not closed anymore, I decide to use my Fury Stripes right here, my Fury Swipes, excuse me, right here. But you would prefer to auto attack your opponent 1 more time, at least before you use the Fury Swipes. So, gonna go ahead and do that, boom, 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 boom. That leaves my opponent with full stacks here. We stack those coins upon our enemies every time we auto attack him or we use our Fury Stripes. We swipe him more times depending on how many stacks he has on him. So that's why we want to use our auto attacks as much as possible before we use the Fury Swipes, so that the Fury Swipes deal more damage by hitting him more often and applying more additional stacks to him when it comes to these gold coin stacks, let me call them like that. And once we have him fully stacked, we're gonna use Assurance. This, look, Fury Swipes gives you a shield, right? And you're gonna be brawling a little bit with your opponent to get your auto attacks off. He will deal a little bit of damage to him. Then you use the Fury Swipes, you gain a shield. If he damages you more and more and more, no problem, because you're gonna heal yourself to full HP by using Assurance onto him when he is at maximum stacks. So that is of course our rotation. Now you can see the damage is not impressive here. We have a 2-level advantage over a Glaceon here as a speedster. And he survived our combo, right? Our auto attacks, our Fury Stripes, and the Assurance. That's why this item, this build here, when it comes to our attack choices, is not like the best thing ever. But here, if this happens to you, you play this build and the enemy escapes after your rotation, you either run him down right now, you follow him until your Assurance cooldown is reset again, and then you will get his ass anyways. Maybe you steal an X speed or an eject button, boom, you use that to kill him. If you don't have these choices available, right? I don't want to chase this Glaceon, man. I stole a potion instead of an X speed or an eject button. Then what you're gonna do is very simple. You just ult his ass and there it goes, right? And that is gonna be the rotation when it comes to the Fury Swipes build. And that was my guide when it comes to how to play the Pokemon or the character Meowth in Pokemon Unite. I hope this was fun and informative. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.